We move through life with a quiet, persistent arrogance. We build sturdy houses, we map the rivers, and we operate under the deep-seated assumption that we are the absolute masters of our environment and our destinies. W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw begins inside the domestic fortress of Laburnum Villa. Surrounded by heavy furniture, drawn blinds, and a brightly burning fire, the White family has curated a space specifically designed to keep the cold, wet night at bay. Mr. White treats fate as a casual game. He recklessly puts his king into sharp, unnecessary peril during a chess match, and later, when a cursed talisman lands on his table, he toys with dark magic. He asks for a payout of £200 as a mere curiosity, a way to clear his mortgage. In Algernon Blackwood's The Willows, two campers venture deep into a flooded, untamed stretch of the Danube River. They pitch their tent on a tiny sandbar, miles away from the nearest sign of human civilization. Their intrusion is an act of defiance. They have actively ignored the warnings of local townsfolk, paddling into a volatile, tempestuous swamp as if it were a recreational playground built for their leisure. Both sets of characters have unknowingly crossed a forbidden boundary. They operate under the fatal assumption that the universe will politely obey human rules and respect human comfort. The physical world eventually pushes back. As Mr. White makes his wish, the mummified paw twists in his hand like a living snake. Out on the Danube, the campers wake to find that the massive willow bushes have physically shifted and crept closer to their tent overnight. Faced with the impossible, the characters reflexively retreat into denial. Mr. White blames the movement of the paw on his imagination, while the campers attribute the shifting trees to the heavy wind and loose sand. They desperately rationalize these anomalies to protect their fragile worldview. Existential dread takes root the moment the physical laws of reality begin to buckle. The mechanism of the monkey's paw is gruesome for its sheer practicality, granting wishes strictly through logical, real-world consequences. The next day, a representative from the local factory delivers the requested £200. It is offered as compensation for Mr. White's son, who has been caught and shredded in the heavy machinery. This diagram shows the brutal logic of karmic irony. A supernatural force actively punishes the father for his interference, using his own agency, the wish, as the catalyst for his son's destruction. The terror of the monkey's paw is the tragedy of agency. The characters are not random victims. They pulled the trigger on their own destruction by trying to play God. The situation in The Willows is different. The threat here is terrifying precisely because it has absolutely no interest in the humans it encounters. The men find undeniable physical evidence of their entrapment. Their slowly disappearing bread, unearthly gong sounds from the sky, a paddle sanded to a sliver. They are stranded on a shrinking island in a rising flood. This visualization reveals a fourth-dimensional intersection. One plane is our human reality, the other is an alien dimension. These entities are simply leaking into our world, randomly feeling the camper's thoughts like a draft through a thin wall. Scaling out to see the full scope of this alien dimension reduces the human experience to a microscopic dot. From this perspective, the humans are insignificant insects accidentally caught in the gears of the universe and required as victims for the sacrifice. While the whites suffer the unbearable weight of getting exactly what they asked for, the campers suffer the terror of realizing the universe does not care about them at all. Both tales push their characters into the final stage of dread, being stripped of all agency and trapped in the pitch black. In the whites' home, claustrophobic panic sets in as a mutilated, undead thing relentlessly pounds on the front door. The old man is reduced to crawling wildly on the floor, searching the darkness for the paw to wish his own son away. Deep in the willows, the campers huddle in their tent in total silence. They have realized that even the act of feeling fear creates a mental signal that will draw the humming void outside directly to their minds. Both stories arrive at a state of absolute submission, where action becomes entirely impossible. Mr. White uses his final wish simply to erase the horror. The pounding stops, the door opens, and he is left staring at a quiet, empty road. The campers realize that physical escape is futile. They returned to a home that had become a place of shadow and silence. Days passed in a state of weary, hopeless resignation. The house didn't just feel empty, it felt static, as if time had stopped moving forward the moment the machinery at the mill did. About a week later, the stillness broke. Mrs. White awoke in the middle of the night with a wild, sudden realization. They still had 2 wishes left on the monkey's paw. She became hysterical, demanding that her husband find the talisman and use it to wish their boy alive again. It is a choice that strips away all logic. If you held the power to reach into the earth and pull a loved one back, could you actually stop yourself from doing it? The burial was the end of his life, but for the Whites, the real test was only beginning. The struggle to live with a loss that they now had the power to violently reverse. Mr. White is terrified. He hears the demand and immediately recognizes the literal, physical implications of bringing a body back to the world of the living. Herbert has been dead for 10 days, his body so mutilated by an industrial accident, he was only recognizable by his clothes. Combined with 10 days of decay, the wish doesn't promise a son, it guarantees an abomination. But his wife's grief is a force he cannot withstand. He yields to her frantic demands, standing in the dark parlor with the paw in his hand, and distinctly wishes his son alive again. By letting emotional desperation override the physical reality of the grave, the Whites have opened a door that was never meant to be touched. At first, the talisman seems to fail. The couple creeps back to bed in the oppressive darkness, believing, perhaps with some relief, that the wish went unheard. Then the silence breaks. A quiet, stealthy knock at the front door. It comes again, louder and more insistent, echoing through the hollow house. Mrs. White doesn't hesitate. She is entirely convinced that her son is standing on the other side of that wood, restored and waiting. She shrieks his name and breaks free from her husband. She drags a chair to the door, scrambling to reach the heavy top bolt that sits just out of her grasp. Behind her, Mr. White is paralyzed. He knows the physics of the machinery and the passage of time. He knows exactly what kind of entity is knocking. He drops to his hands and knees in the dark. He begins groping wildly across the floorboards, searching for the fallen monkey's paw, before his wife can finish unbolting the door. The bolt creaks back, inch by inch. Just as the metal clears the socket, his fingers finally close around the talisman. This is a race between 2 desperate movements. One hand reaching to pull the past back into the room, and another clawing in the dark to keep it outside. As the door begins to swing open, Mr. White frantically breathes his 3rd and final wish into the dark. Instantly, the knocking stops. The door swings wide, caught by a cold wind that rushes into the hallway. Mr. White rushes down to his wife's side. They look out into the night, bracing for a miracle or a nightmare. But the porch is empty. The flickering street lamp illuminates nothing but a quiet, completely deserted road. That final wish was the only way to protect her. He forced his son back into the silence of the cemetery, to spare his wife from the sight of what the machinery had left behind. The street remains empty because some things cannot be fixed. And in that moment, Mr. White understood the true curse of the monkey's paw. Some things that leave this world are never meant to return.